It's nice to wire your bilge pump directly onto the batteries because then you know it's always going to work no matter what.
Good luck. The chain's got pretty rusty.
This is my favorite shade of glove. We're about to start the race. Check out how tiny this is, scary. So this morning, the toilet wasn't flushing. I decided to take it apart to troubleshoot. So I did a little Googling and it said the first thing to do is to check the pump. So I've taken the pump off and we're soaking it in vinegar, and it had, because I flushed the toilet pretty thoroughly with fresh water before I left, but it's just got this, what is it, like calcified growth on it?
Calcified piss.
Yeah, probably. So we're soaking it in vinegar just to get all of that off, and then I was like, alright, I don't really know how this works, so I'm just gonna keep looking at stuff until I figure it out. And then if you look in here, these two valves, you have the lever, and it pushes one down, so it selects if you're opening wet bowl or dry bowl. And then I looked in here, this is the intake, and that is a fish.
Fish! We have problem.
That's hilarious. Oh, gross. I don't even want to touch it. And that
Herein lies the problem.
is why we weren't getting... No wonder, because it flushed perfectly and then it suddenly stopped.
We've got dinner.
This little guy must have just...
What a way to die.
What a way. So these little valves, this is the fresh water or salt water in. So it must be that when you switch the lever, if you go dry bowl, all it does is it just pushes this down and it closes this guy off and probably opens this one, and then vice versa. While I'm at it, I'm also going to grease up the little handle that comes out because that's been getting pretty sticky lately. I've just been pouring tiny amounts of vegetable oil down the toilet and that's been lubing it up, but I need to do that every couple days, which is kind of annoying. So I read online on some toilet forums and they said that silicone grease is great if you take the pump apart, which I've just done, just dropped it in the icky toilet water. Stuffy grease for my stuffing box, so I'm just gonna use a tiny bit of that. I'm just gonna borrow it. Silicone grease, good shit. And we'll go from there. This is still soaking, but I'm gonna see if I can start chipping away at this calcification. The reason you want to use silicone grease is that it is water insoluble, so apparently it's supposed to not come off because of the water. And I'm just gonna grease this whole mechanism too, because I know that O-rings like to have grease on them. I've just opened up the seacocks again. Everything is connected back together, handles on, la la la. So we're going to go on to wet bowl and see if wet comes out. There we go. Fish removed. Well, I was working on the toilet and now I'm about to do an edit. The cockpit is completely torn apart because I started a project where back in French Polynesia, I bought and installed a bilge pump to go behind my engine because I was having so much trouble with that area. For those of you who've seen those episodes, basically my stuffing box was shot, but it happened in Panama right when COVID hit, so I wasn't able to replace it. And then I did a 41-day passage from Panama to the Marquesas and spent 2 years in French Polynesia during COVID when I couldn't haul out and I was at really remote places. And it got progressively worse and worse so that I couldn't really use my engine at all, and I was sailing off anchor around the coral, out of the passes in the Tuamotus, into the passes in the Tuamotus, and every time I turned on my engine there would be this huge flood, and I could use it in emergencies, but then I had to hand pump it all out and it was just a giant pain in the neck. So I finally hauled out and replaced the stuffing box, and I was like, you know what, I don't have any bilge pumps on my boat, I should probably put one there because it seems important. So I've sent Dan off on a mission to see if he can find one here. So while he's doing all of that, I'm gonna keep working on an edit. I just booked Gecko in to be hauled out at Rosshaven Marina. Okay homies, check it out. Welcome to Pimp My Crib. So the flip-up table also doubles as a really awesome editing table. I've never had a table in Gecko. I can edit away, which is exactly what I'm doing right now, can you tell? And this is very cool.
Okay, so being the safety conscious sailor that Holly is, she fitted a bilge pump into her bilge in French Polynesia, but now that I'm joining and she's being extra safety conscious, she's decided that she'd actually like to attach a hose to that bilge pump so that it can pump water out of the boat. So all the parts we've got so far are fitting, and now we have to just connect the hose that goes out the seacock to the bilge pump hose. So they're two different diameters, of course, because otherwise life would be too easy. One is 1 inch and 3/16, and one is just 1 inch. None of the stores I've gone to have 1 inch and 3/16, so I have a 1 inch to 1 1/4 inch. So we're going to hope that that fits, and if it doesn't, I'm going to stretch it out with hot water hopefully and just try and jam it on. A tight fit's not exactly a bad thing. Initial testing promising on that one. Oh wow, it seems like we actually have the right size bits. That one might be, if anything, a little bit loose, but that's okay. That's what hose clamps are for. A little bit tight, but it'll go. Takes seconds. Oh, arguably harder than putting on a condom. Maybe I should have lubed it up a little bit. Situations like this, I normally just spit on it. For the older crowd.
Now that the bilge pump is all connected hose-wise, I'm onto the wiring end of things. So in Polynesia, I pulled all the wires through, and then I just didn't bother connecting onto the batteries because the bilge pump wasn't hooked up to anything. Quick little Holly is editing side note, I did not leave the wires like that in the batteries for 2 years. They were really nicely coiled and taped and safely put away, so don't judge me for that. I do stupid things, but not that stupid. So I have these connectors that go from this gauge to this giant gauge. It's nice to wire your bilge pump directly onto the batteries because then you know it's always going to work no matter what, and if it has a float switch, that's sort of like your on-off switch, and then definitely put it through a fuse. But this way, even if something goes funky with any of this stuff, the bilge pump still goes. Okay, bilge pump is all wired up. As I'm looking at this, I'm realizing I should have made it a bit cleaner. Like this red is just kind of hanging out. Maybe I can zip tie it or something. I should have let it around the sides, but I didn't. I'm gonna go out with Andy on his boat to go for a little Wednesday afternoon sail race with the yacht club. All right, we're on our way to Fahrenheit to win this race. Best skipper in the Townsville Bay area, right here.
Ready to go.
What kind of boat is Fahrenheit?
It's a FAR 11.6.
Cool. And super speedy. So we hope. Ready to get off?
Yep.
Captain is at the helm. This is Oscar. This boat's got one of those round things on the back of it. That boat's going down. That boat's going down. Look at these backing up skills. Can't do that on my boat. This is Andy's strategy, just as the whole race backwards.
We beat him in reverse. There's no problem with
We're
you.
still going backwards. I think he's serious about this backwards thing. The Townsville Yacht Club and Marina has a little racing group, and once or twice a week they go out and do races between Magnetic Island and the Townsville area. The Townsville town, that's Magnetic Island, you can see.
4, 3, 2, 1, go.
We're about to start the race.
20 seconds.
I remember fondly when Gecko is in the Townsville Marina once or twice a week, seeing a bunch of people coming and getting their boats ready to go. It's just really nice to see boats being used. Andy is one of the most chill race skippers I've ever sailed with. I was a bit nervous to go onto a race boat because some people can get really intense sailor, but Andy's whole motto is getting people out, teaching them how to sail. He wants everyone to take the helm, everyone to learn every position, and just wants to share his love of sailing with everyone on the boat. So even I took the helm. I must admit I was terrible at it. I don't really steer Gecko in a racy way. I try to get her to go to certain land masses. Usually I can't, and then I let the wind vane do it. But with racing, you have to pay attention to so much more. Racing is a whole different type of sailing, so I was rounding the boat up a bit too high and not following the telltales, and Andy mercifully took the helm back from me and just continued to slay. as the skipper. Tell us the strategy, Captain.
So he's on starboard, he's got right of way, and we'll try to cut in front of him.
That's right. This is real racy shit. You don't see this on Gecko. We don't race like this. Strategies. Oh yeah. I'm practicing my Australian.
Yeah, nah.
Oh yeah, yeah nah, yeah nah, yeah. I'm still working on it. Oh, there's a lot of people on that boat. Alright, so the strategy is that we're going to tack directly into this boat. Woo! Oh yeah! Nice.
Right. 50 meters. 40. $20 for our North American viewers.
Thank y'all!
About 15 meters.
How many inches?
Oh, don't. 10 yards. Okay, ease it off.
Look at that precision. This is my favorite look.
We're having in the race.
Eating whilst howling is the best.
Oh yeah, for sure. Here we have photographic evidence that the skipper is out of the cockpit. This is apparently very illegal in
Everything's
racing.
safe. Everything's safe.
He's coming back.
Skipper's back. Damn it.
You never saw that. The race ended just as the sun was setting and we slowly cruised back to the dock. It was one of those perfect afternoons where there was a nice breeze, probably 15 knots, but no chop, dead flat, boat just cruising along at 6 or 7 knots. Really nice to get off the dock and out on the water again. We're coming in for a little nighttime docking. It's the speedy docking of someone who's done this a lot of times. So what place did we get, or do you not know until they do the handicaps?
Probably about 5th out of 14, 15.
Well, that's pretty good. Top 3rd. Now we're gonna go have a celebratory beer up at the yacht club. I'm trying to figure out a new cap for this. In the Solomon Islands, I lost the cap to my anchor chain locker when my anchor got super hung up. And kind of twisted around itself in a million ways, and I basically ended up hauling up 120 feet of chain and anchor all in one go, and it was really tricky to do it by hand. So it's just temporarily taped off for now. So Andy has made me this little loaf of foam, and his idea is that I'm just gonna push it over here and create a little inverse template that he can then fill in and make his magic to do a carbon fiber and rubber cap for this. So the foam thing was a very, very good idea, but it's not quite working the way we anticipated. But Gecko used to have 2 holes in the front for 2 separate anchor chains to come out of. I don't need that. So I blocked one off with a piece of decking, like treated decking wood, that since is starting to split. And we don't really need it on at all. So if I take this off, I can give it to Andy as a template. And this is the one that we do care about, and then this we need to replace through it anyway, because you can see it's splitting there and it's split across here. This is very cool. So we have this guy off, and I'm just going to give it to Andy, and then he can work his mystical, magical, miracle powers with it. This seems like a way easier option. Beep-a-dee-boo. Dan and I are going to go museuming now and call it a nice little amount of work done today, so I'm just going to leave this in the cockpit for Andy.
Work afterwards.
That is true. Yeah, we'll give these guys another coat of paint after. But if Andy swings by, I'm just gonna leave these in the cockpit for him. He is a welcome guest on the Gecko, whether or not I'm here, as he took very good care of her while I wasn't here.
The project. Right, so this is the anchor locker cap. So what we gave Andy was a couple of ship molds, and then eventually we used the spare one. So this is what we started him off with. This is carbon fiber tape, which is describing as a godsend, and then this is the mold that he's so far created. So how did you get to this point, Andy?
So what I did was put, haven't got any here, put some peel ply around, around the edge.
Stuff. Yeah.
Initially double wrapped it.
Okay. So the peel ply is the stuff that you can epoxy onto, and the epoxy won't stick.
It'll come off. So then I had the basic mold of it.
Okay, nice.
And then it came off.
Yeah. And
it was pretty thin. I had to very gently put some more carbon fibre across the top.
Okay. Did you use the tape again?
Yes, I used the tape.
Okay, cool.
And just layered tape on, put little bits of tape over the side.
Yeah.
So it's had about 4 processes so far.
4 layers of this.
So we've got a little bit more to go.
And would you describe that as a fun task or an arduous task?
No, it's quite enjoyable actually. It's fiddly.
Fiddly, yeah.
It's fiddly, but I think it's, you know, it's got to last a couple of oceans, so we'll put a bit more on tonight.
Absolutely, yeah. It's got the Indian Ocean still to go.
And make it.
Nice. So the final, you add it on, and then you grind it down on that grinding wheel.
And then the final layers, I put some on the top, and then we'll just coat it in resin.
On this clip, on the World According to Andy, we have the peel ply. Life-saving stuff.
Magical.
Like cling film, but way less shit. Doesn't stick. Okay. Just the same as any epoxy job. Lightly painting it on, wrap it around. And this is the tool shed storage unit.
The TARDIS.
The TARDIS.
This is the new cap for the anchor chain locker, so it's all carbon fiber, and Andy just put this little bolt through it. He nylocked it on and then just bent the end, because my request was that the chain would be able to hook over this, because this is how the old cap was, and that also holds the cap down. It has this little divot in it which fits in here, so that when you put it together, the chain, or in this case the rode, has a spot to come through. And then he added a tab on, because everything he makes for Gecko comes with a 4-ocean warranty, but he said it was only valid if it was tied on, because the last one fell overboard. So I've tied it on. Now I can claim it if I need to within the 4 oceans. He actually made me another one as a spare, which was really nice of him. All right, I'm outside with my trusty fan, comes with me everywhere. And this project that I'm working on right now is another one of those ones I've been wanting to do for years. So this used to be a shore power panel, and I've just, so when I rewired my boat, I took out all the connections for the shore power, because I knew I was never really going to be in marinas, and it's all like American, doesn't work with European, and blah 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 blah. So I was like, you know, I'm just gonna make everything simple and not have this. And so I did, but this hole in the cockpit, the easiest way to fill it was to just leave the panel in, the little connector where you'd put the plug. So I have left it in, but it gets in the way because it stuck out pretty far, and every time I try to lift the cockpit grating, it would sort of get in the way. And it was something I always thought, I'm gonna replace this one day with something that's really flush so that I can get the cockpit grating out more easily, and today is the day. So I've ripped it out. I've got this scrap piece of metal that happens to be pretty much exactly the right size, except for this needs to be cut off. Dan's gonna angle grind that. Well, Dan has a cool plan of how to angle grind it, because we don't have a vise, we don't really have any of the proper tools to do this, and Dan wants to keep all of his fingers. And what he's done to cut it with the angle grinder is actually screwed it on to the piece of wood so that it stays in one place, and then he's just angle grinding through this and the wood, which is a pretty cool thing to do. The product I'm using for this is just 4200. It's one of my favorites. I think, so what I've learned is that 42 and 5200 are sort of American Canadian products, and then Europeans use Sikaflex, but it's the same thing. And this is what I already had open, so this is what we're gonna use, and I'm just gonna goop it to high heavens. Editing Holly, coming back at you again. So since I recorded this, I actually had a conversation with my dad, and he told me that 5200 has a way longer cure time than Sikaflex. Sikaflex has different levels of flexedness, just like 42s and 52s that I don't know off the top of my head, but he said that Sikaflex has a way shorter cure time. So if you're hauling your boat out and you're doing a through haul and you're supposed to let it cure a certain amount of time before you put the boat back in the water, if you're an American and you can find it, Sikaflex has a shorter cure time than 5200, so it's just kind of a cool additional piece of information that I'm going to add in. It's sunny. I have this fun and exciting problem on Gecko where she's a European built boat who spent 20 years in the US. All my repairs along the way have been in European countries or metric countries. Basically what I'm saying is that half the stuff on the boat is metric, half the stuff is standard, and I never seem to have the right tools for what I'm doing. So I have a ratchet socket set that has both metric and standard, but my wrenches are only metric and these bolts are right between 9 and 10 mils. So I grabbed both, and maybe if we put them together it'll work. This is my favorite shade of glove. They're more expensive than all the other ones by a lot of money, but I just buy them anyway because I feel so pretty when I'm wearing them. I'm just kidding. They're the cheapest ones at the Bunnings. So here's the uncleaned version. My dad always says if it's not messy when you're doing caulking stuff, then you probably haven't put enough product on. And I think this is the perfect amount. You want it to just be squishing outside from all of the gaps, and that's exactly what this one is doing. And there's the finished product with the smearing around the inside and the nice flushy flatty on the outside. It looks really good. Very pleased. While Gecko is just sitting on the dock without the anchor being used, the whole thing completely rusted up, and the shackle that attaches the anchor to the chain also rusted up. I like to replace these shackles every year or two anyway because they just have a hard life underwater, and it's a pretty important thing. Dan's angle grinding off the shackle because it's so rusted that it can't even be undone. And I just took off the shackle that connects the little clip at the bottom of the forestay that I put the hang-on jibs on, and keep in mind this has also rusted a ton over the time that I was gone. It's just got a pile of rust under it, but check out how tiny this is. Scary. So this is going in the bin, and I've got these two shackles. This one very nice, very new, so I'm going to use this for the anchor. And this one still really nice, but the pin's a little bit seized, so I've just hit it with some PB Blast, and I'm just gonna try to get that undone.
Okay, so good luck. Whilst we've been away, the chain's got pretty rusty. Normally getting in and out of the water every day, it's all good. I know the water doesn't really allow it to oxidize, and the salt doesn't get to eat away the rust, but now it's pretty bad, pretty cracked. And these bolts need changing, so we're going to angle grind off the super rusted bolts, take it over to Andy's house and use a wire brush angle grinder to polish it up, add a bit of rust buster onto it, and then paint it with some regalvanized paint. So step one is to just cut this little bit off, ensuring that we don't cut this little bit off, which would be disastrous. I guess then we'd probably just drill another hole, or Holly would sack me.
We brought the rusty anchor over to Andy's house, and he, generous soul that he is, started grinding off all the rust until Dan insisted on doing it. This was the first stage in regalvanizing the anchor. Just get all of the old rust and all of the old bits off with a wire wheel, get it nice and smooth, and then Andy had some galvanized paint that he let us use to just paint that galvanizing back onto the anchor. This process took a while because we ended up getting sidetracked with hauling the boat out, so stay tuned. In one of the future episodes you guys will see the anchor hanging at Andy's house one of the times we visit him, freshly galvanized. It made a huge difference. I mean, you can just see all of that rust coming off the anchor. It really sketched us out when we got back to the boat after being gone for 3 months and saw how much it had rusted, so this has made me feel a lot better.
Okay, so Holly is out she's out doing something, I'm not sure, running errands. So while she's out, I'm gonna tackle the mini fridge plan. So it's quite exciting. Holly's decided to invest in a mini fridge, just a tiny little 12-volt mini fridge that we can run off of the inverter on those really sunny days. So if we wake up, it's really sunny, we're going for a kite, we fancy a cold beer, it's plausible. So that's the plan. We're going to somehow install it into this little corner here, somewhere here or here. First challenge is I'm just going to take it apart, see what's behind there, see what I can mount onto and off of, see where we end up. When Holly wants a job doing properly, she does it. When Holly wants a job doing quickly, I do it. The old liquid nails. Excellent. Chucking on the glue, chucking on the back. Bam.
This is a finished product of the fridge that Dan installed. So it's a top opener. It was actually designed to open like this, like an actual fridge, but as we know, hot air rises, so it's more efficient if you have a fridge that opens this way so it doesn't all just run out when you open it. Plus, the cooling vent of the fan is on the bottom, so this way it just cools straight down instead of cooling against the wall. And then Dan glued these fins on to the back, and just because it does want to stick out from the wall a bit so that it doesn't overheat, and then he just screwed through this, which was very tricky. It took him a really long time. It's such an annoyingly tiny space, and this thing is very solid. Underneath it has the option to be either a cigarette lighter plug or an inverter. We did try it with a cigarette lighter plug, which is a lot more power efficient, but unfortunately it got so hot in the first 10 minutes that I could barely touch it, so super dangerous. We're not doing that, so now we just run it through the inverter, and it's great for those sunny days when, yeah, you just want to know that in 6 hours you're going to want a relatively cold beer. Thanks for watching this week's episode. I put out new YouTubes every 2 weeks on Mondays, and for my patrons, you guys get a snack on the weeks that I don't put out full-length YouTube episode. Thank you so much to all of my patrons who are supporting me and making this trip possible. If you'd like to become a patron, my Patreon is patreon.com/windhippie. You guys get exclusive weekly videos, things I don't show on YouTube, specific things, questions, it's very fun and exciting, and also real-time updates of where I actually am, because my videos lag behind on YouTube. One-time donations, I have a PayPal, paypal.me/windhippie, and merchandise, all in the links below. Thank you for subscribing and liking my videos. It really helps me, you know, get some money, which is all the cruising fund comes from you guys. And I hope you're enjoying this series of Gecko being in the marina, Gecko being hauled out. It's sort of the overhaul series. Every time I'm in a country like Australia or New Zealand, where it's easy to get boat parts and easy to have the boat somewhere safe, I like to do big overhaul periods to get her ready for the times when I'm in places like Indonesia where it's harder to get those sorts of things. So Australia is just a lot of boat work, which is exhausting but kind of fun and really nice to have Dan along with me to help out with it. So thank you guys for subscribing this video. Thank you Tish for helping me remember when I need to do another edit and get them scheduled. Right now I'm doing a bunch of edits in Darwin, getting ready for my passage to Indonesia. And that's all. Thank you guys for your comments. I love reading them, and I'll see you next week. Patrons, YouTube people, I'll see you in 2 weeks with another full-length episode.